Ah, looks delicious, right? Well, if there's one thing that people have said for years about healthy eating is know where your food comes from. Trace the farm to where your mutton comes from or where your eggs come from. Know how your sheep and chickens and cows live. Then you can enjoy it because you know what kind of food you're getting, right? Well, feeding a family, that's always important, right? It's definitely important if you live in the French countryside in the 1700s. I mean, after all, food at that point is not even that plentiful. You might only have this much food, and you've got to feed your family of 3 or 4, and each person gets 2 food apiece at the season time, harvest time, and this just isn't enough. And you have to start making that Sophie's Choice decision of which kid's not going to make it. I know that's horrible, but what if I told you you got better at farming and you shrunk a little bit in size and you were no longer just a farmer on the moors and areas of France? You became a cave farmer, that you could farm and dig and mine and even eat rocks and rubies and wood if you were good enough and played your turns right. And what if I told you that such a dichotomy doesn't have to be a dilemma anymore, that you don't have to choose between one of these 2 professions, that you could be a farmer and a cave farmer at the exact same time? That's right. The choice is up to you. Quick history lesson for me. I love worker placement games. If you've seen my review of viticulture in Tuscany and Manhattan Project Energy Empire, you'll know this is my favorite genre of European games, or maybe even my favorite genre of games in general. I'm not that sure. I'm still trying to decide if Great Western Trail technically counts as worker placement since you only have 1 worker, but you have so many different buildings, that's another issue altogether. These 2 games are very similar. In fact, if you look in Board Game Geek, this one is listed as a re-implementation as that, but is it that simple? See, the whole point of this whole 2 fighting style match video is to see if this really is the Shawn Michaels, the Marty Jannetty, where Caverna kicks Agricola through the barbershop window of Brutus the Barber Beefcake, or if they can work in some synchronized harmony and truly be the rockers again, if they can not fight each other and not be mutually exclusive. I mean, some people say, well, I have Caverna, I no longer need Agricola. That's kind of like, I have Eldritch Horror, I never need to play Arkham Horror again. That's a valid point, particularly if you want to save shelf space, maybe some finances, but does this one truly replace this one? Is it a game that you can just get rid of because you have this one? I say, let's take a look further and find out kind of what makes each one tick, how they play, the different aspects, the different user interfaces, the different secondary user interfaces. Kind of like if you saw my triple play review between Arkham Horror, the card game, Eldritch Horror, and Mansions of Madness. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to compare and contrast and see, should you pick up both of these, neither of these, or either of the 2, and which one suits your fancy better. So let's take a look right now at the initial user interface of these games. Now, to be fair, this section is a lot quicker than the Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror, Mansions of Madness one, because this is the user interface, the direct user interface. You've got your discs here for Caverna and your staples, right? Everybody gets this in their own color, and nice colors, by the way, good choices of colors. There's up to 7 in the box, but you should never play this with 7, period. Red's over here, these are here, and that's it. That's all the wooden bits as far as your player pieces. Back here is Agricola 2.0. Now this is the revised edition of Agricola we're taking a look at. You get a little worker-shaped meeple, as well as stables and wooden fences. Now this is a different thing we'll talk about when we get into the method of play a little bit further, but the interesting thing about this wooden meeple, these are even soon to be replaced if you love Agricola enough to buy WizKids' version of their meeples, and there's these really nice fully painted HeroClix looking miniature, so look for those. Now, as far as the secondary interface and what you do on the board, let's take a look at that. Now, as mentioned before, there are a few things I like more in a game than having my own board. These are the worker boards. I won't tell you which game's which. Spoiler, the one with the cave is Caverna, as in cave farmers. This one is the Caverna one, and this one's the Agricola one. Already off the bat, you can notice that this one seems a little bit more free-flowing. Instead of these very square-looking spaces, you've got these trees that just kind of look like spaces, and you've got these spaces in the mountain that kind of look like spaces, but it's all a little bit smoother art. Down here, you have these very cordoned-off spaces. Now, does that matter so much? Not really, no, but for aesthetics, I give the win here to Caverna just because of the more free-flowing look to it. Now, if you cover up these places, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, you get the bonuses. For here, you would get a food, you would get a pig, food, and food there. You start your house here in a cave dwelling over here, and then over here, you get a house. Each of these can hold 2 dwarves and a pair of animals over here is what that says. I'm not 100% sure exactly on that, but that is the direct user interface of your board. Now let's take a look at what these boards become and what you can do with them right now. So let's start with Caverna. Here's the beautiful thing about Caverna. Again, we talked about this free-flowing board. Let's say you take one of the actions that lets you chop up a forest and put down a pasture. Well, now you can turn this pasture, but you would hardly ever do that, but you would typically flip it into one of these tiles here, which is the slash and burn tile. Let's say you put it right here. You now have pasture land where you can put animals and a field, which the field's great. You put crops on it and it grows. You put one wheat on here, you put two more on top from the game, and you grow wheat, and it's how you simulate farming. You can do this further. You can kind of continue digging out. You can even fence in. Now here's the cool part. Instead of just picking this tile up and putting another one down, you could just put this tile on top of it, building up to make the tiles better. Over here in the mine, though, it's a little bit different. So let's say you put this tile here, you have a tunnel here, and now you have a passageway, a cavern up here, where you can put rooms in the cavern. See how they can kind of build up like this? And this is a great little thing like that lets you just build everything up. So let's say we do this here. Well, now we have an ore mine, right? Because the ore mine can get dug across there because you're digging deeper into the earth. And if you look at this aesthetically, it looks very pleasing because it looks like you're digging even deeper into the earth. You say, well, I've got an ore mine, I want to dig even deeper. Well, you can take and dig even further into a ruby mine. By technically putting your tiles higher, you're digging deeper into the earth. It's really cool. Now over here are all the different tiles, all the different buildings, things like the writing chamber, the prayer chamber, supply storage, weapons storage, main storage, food chamber. All these do different things. For instance, this one, you get points at the end for every 2 wood and every 2 pumpkin you have. I'm sorry, that's not what that means. It's some sort of victory point thing at the end, but this one is you do get 2 victory points for every combo of a vegetable and a wheat that you have. These over here, something like the hunting parlor, you gain 2, for every 2 wood you gain a victory point, and at any time before scoring you can convert 2 pigs into either 2 cash or 2 wood. Let me show you my favorite one. I think it's the, let me find it real quick, shouldn't take long. Well, goodness gracious, I'm not gonna be able to find it. Here it is, the beer parlor. And the reason this one's interesting is it costs you 2 wood. I'm sorry, I've been saying that wrong. That's the cost. It costs 2 wood. It's got a neat little picture on the back. Anytime before scoring, you can convert 2 wheat to either 3 gold or 4 food. Normally, 1 wheat is only worth, right down here, it'll tell you 1 wheat is worth 1 food. So now your wheat becomes quadruply valuable because it's 2 wheat becomes 4 food. I guess doubly valuable. 2 wheat becomes 2 food. 4 food, which is a great thing. So you then either can do that or you can trade it for 3 gold, which is victory points in the end of the game. So that's how you kind of dig and put out new parlors and stuff. So these spaces where you put rooms, and the tunnels are where you dig mines into the ground. And it really does just feel just easy. You understand how to do this. Everything kind of plays together, and you can kind of move these more woodland tiles out here. You can get bigger pastures like this and all that sort of stuff. And it's just a beautiful looking game. Now, to give Agricola equal time, I've kind of already set it up though a little bit, but you have your different rooms down here, and you can fence in tiles this time. Instead of just putting down a tile that has the fences on it, you actually buy the wood to fence in an area here. And weirdly enough, I can't remember if this is worth more points in the end or if that's worth more points in the end. I feel like this is, but I can't quite remember. Either way, you can put animals in here. You can house more workers for each room you have up here, and then you can go and you can upgrade these to clay rooms and stone rooms and such. You can put your vegetables out over here. So Agricola has kind of the same feel. It just, maybe it's the fact that the margins are wider. I think that's what does it. The margins are just a little bit wider than the Caverna board, which kind of gives it the feel of more of a space as opposed to just art. So let's take a look though at the actual actions of the game and see how they play different and what you do differently, what the boards look like that you put your workers on, because the win actually goes somewhere else this time. So here's how the board itself looks when it's laid out. Now certain things change based on player count. This is obviously the 2-player edition here instead of the 3 to 4. Another 2-player edition down here. Also here and here it changes based on player count. Major improvements go down here. All the different things you can do, from ovens and extra additions and all that sort of thing. Up here are the actions you get always printed onto the board. And look at this board, by the way. It's really cool the way it's cut out of the mountain like that. The different action cards will turn over each round every time you go, and you'll have a harvest at the end of these little phases of turns here. So the first one gives you 4 turns till you have a harvest 3, 2, 2, 2, 1. So you'll get your actions that are always here, things like plow a field, get clay, 3 wood. Then you start turning over cards, things like build a fence. So you can turn in 1 wood per fence tile that I showed you. Grain utilization, this is how you either sow or bake bread, ways to get food. The difference between a Caverna and Agricola is that feeding your family is vastly more important. I know that sounds silly to say that feeding your family is not important in Caverna. It is, but it's not as important as Agricola. Agricola is all about getting that food out there, because if you don't, you lose a lot of points, and it's not worth it to lose those points just because you couldn't feed your family, and you're an embarrassment to society in this time period. You don't want to be that. So let's take a look now at Caverna's layout and see what's different. So Caverna, I'll show you a little empty right now. You would put all those tiles I was showing you out here, all the different room tiles, and here it kind of also shows you what each one does and what the cost is. On the back is an easier version with only 6 versus 12 on each side. So if you kind of want to ease your way into it, here's all the actions printed on the board. Again, these change based on player count, all the different things. I'll just kind of show you. Get a wood, get a stone, and get to put down one of those tiles. Take all of these things here. You would know if it was either, because it would have a slash. All of these different things here. You do the same thing. You put out cards over here. You put out these random tokens though to see if you'll have a harvest, and sometimes you'll have a harvest, sometimes you won't. So you never know when you're going to have a harvest. The only bad thing about not having harvest is if you're counting on getting more animals, because the rule in both of these games, if you have 2 adult animals in one area on your board, let's say you have it pastured in here, you have a baby of that animal. Now I should say 2 or more. It's not a matter of, if you have 4, you don't get 2 more. You have 4, you just get 1 more. And that is the user interface for Caverna and Agricola. Let's discuss now which one is a better, more fun game. Now, to be fair though, asking which one's a better game is not really the most fair question, because each of them has a unique, different taste to it. And you say, Brian, they're very much the same game. Well, yes, in a sense. You are putting out workers to do actions, to get food, to feed your family, to build up your farm and have animals. This clearly is a re-implementation of the ideas that was learned from this, as well as La Havre or Labora and all the other stuff that came in between the two of these. However, the one interesting thing about this is that Agricola has a system that I didn't mention much that Caverna absolutely does not have. Caverna works on perfect information. Everybody knows everything. You know what your opponent has, you know what you have, and they know what you have, right? Agricola does not work off perfect information. Everyone gets a hand of cards, both minor upgrades and workers. I think they call them occupations. You have a hand of cards that completely changes the game for the good or for the bad. It changes how you play. It changes how your opponent plays against you. It changes the things you can do. It changes the rules on how you get certain things. For instance, you might get lumber way cheaper. It might give you 2 lumber every time you take a lumber. It's a really interesting format that happens because this works on a bit of randomness. It works on a bit of strategy that has not perfect information. And some people, that drives them crazy. The idea of not knowing everything and not having that perfect information in front of them drives you crazy in a worker placement game, especially this kind of deep, heavier type game. If you don't like that, Caverna doesn't have that. You go straight into Caverna, you know everything. Caverna is excellent in the sense that it plays straightforward. It's a lot prettier of a game, except the board. The board on this one is way prettier. Now, I have the revised version with the animeeples and all that stuff. I don't know what the original board looks like. All I know is this is just a very pretty board. Everything looks great about it. The meeple quality is the exact same. The food meeple, whatever you call it. I know I was corrected that it's not a meeple if it's not shaped like a person, but whatever. The wooden tokens, the food resource tokens, they're both the same quality, except these are thinner. So the wood and everything in this game is thinner than the one in this game. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. It actually means this one stores a little lighter and a little easier. The quality is there of all the components, all the game is there. This one's got a lot more to it as far as way thicker. But honestly, I think a lot of that has to do with the resources and the tiles taking up more room than a deck of cards. The cards over here, like I said, that is a fantastic system. So which one do you get though? I don't know, that's up to you. I didn't even want to call this one because they're so similar, yes. But if you had to get down to brass tacks, you say, okay, Brian, if you had to get rid of it, because both these are mine. This one's actually Carla's, this is mine. If you had to get down to brass tacks and say, okay, which one are you keeping? Because I'm keeping both. Which one are you keeping? I'm probably going to go over here for 2 reasons. One, I had it first and I like the way it plays. I like the way it looks. I like the tiles and digging down, all that sort of stuff. But 2, this one's got an app. And if you don't have the money to get both of them, well, you can pay way less and get the app of Agricola and play Caverna. Now the other thing is this one costs way less than this one. This one's easier to find right now than this one too. So you have to take that into consideration. Is it something you want to pay a little bit more for a very similar experience? Or do you want to just shell out the money and get both? If you like these style of games, like I said, these pictures are the same kind of things. I love the games with the, you know, the Mayfair or the Lookout or the Z-Man or whatever group of people this is that makes these covers. I love these covers with little people on the side working. Le Havre's got it. What else has it? Olive Sky has it. Grand Austria Hotel has it, which, by the way, this chap makes a cameo in Grand Austria Hotel. So I love all of these games, and I'm one of those people that's going to have quite a few of these games with this little side picture, and it tells you a certain style about the game, but which one do you get? It really depends on that main factor of randomness and a hidden hand of cards versus perfect information. The rest is up to you. You can make your decision based on kind of what you saw there. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Other than that, man, make sure to follow me on the Dice Tower. I'll see all the stuff we're putting out there. And continue to comment, watch, and share these videos. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.